Hi everybody, it's World Championship time, and first up we'll get presented with the individual time trial, where in the final 10 editions we had Rohan Dennis taking back-to-back wins in 2018 and 19 and GANNA in 2020 and 21. Let's start with a quick look back at the recent courses. The Harrogate course in 2019, which covered 54k and 608 meters of elevation gain, won by Rohan Dennis. Silver went to Evenepoel and bronze to Filippo Ganna. In 2020 at Imola, Filippo Ganna took his first rainbow jersey ahead of Van Aert and Koen, and this on a relatively short course for World Championship standards, 32k and 384 meters of elevation gain. He repeated this feat in 21 on the 43k pancake flat course in Bruges, this time ahead of Van Aert and Evenepoel. In 2022, Tobias Vos surprised everybody, taking the win ahead of Koen and Evenepoel on the 34k Wollongong course, which featured 312 meters of elevation gain. On last year's edition in Glasgow, it was Remco Evenepoel who beat Ganna and Tarling on a 48k course with 280 meters of elevation gain. The parcours for this year's individual time trial in Switzerland presents the riders with a 46k course featuring 407 meters of elevation gain. The climbing sits roughly halfway through the stage and presents the riders with some short, steeper sections, the most notable one being a 600-meter ramp at 8.5% average, sitting in the middle of a 2.4k 5% average gradient climb. This year around, we have 70 participants representing 45 countries. Amongst these participants, here's an overview of the riders who managed to ride into the top 10 of an individual time trial world championship, including only two former winners, Remco Evenepoel and Tobias Vos. Here's the betting odds at the time of recording, with Evenepoel the outright favorite, and then here's the riders to watch in my book. Starting with the defending champion Remco Evenepoel, who is without a doubt the best rider in the world when it comes to racing against the clock. Also Kampenaerts is potential top 10 material here. Vine is the one to watch for Australia, even though these long ITTs don't necessarily seem to be his thing. Both Asgreen and Bjerg can be considered outsiders for the top 10. Bjerg is one of those riders who can have an out-of-the-blue exceptional day, yet we haven't seen that for long, so I'm picking Asgreen over Bjerg for the Danes. For the French, also Armirail can be considered an outsider for the top 10. Then we get Joshua Tarling for Great Britain, the under-23 world champion in 2022, and third to Evenepoel and Ganna on last year's Worlds. Then we get to the Italians, where both Affini and Cattaneo can do really well here. They're clearly in form, both fresh of a first and third place respectively in the European Individual Time Trial Championship last week. For Portugal, watch out for Nelson Oliveira. He's one of those riders who always does well on the World's Individual Time Trial, 8th on last year's edition and 6th on the year before. For Norway, we have both Vos and Werenskjold, who came 9th in the European Championship Individual Time Trial. I'm considering both of them outsiders for the top 10. For Switzerland, Bissiger will have this one down as one of his main goals, yet in my book it's all eyes on Koen, who's fresh of a dominant victory on the Vuelta's closing ITT and second to Affini in the European Championship. For Slovenia, it's all eyes on Roglic, the 2021 Olympic champion against the clock, who hasn't lined up for a World Championship individual time trial since 2019. He's as good as a certainty for the top 10 here. The question is where in that top 10 he'll position. Then we move on to Team USA, where McNulty should be the main man, fourth in last year's Worlds, and from what we've seen in the Vuelta, clearly firing on all pistons. And finally, based on his performances in the Vuelta, I believe Vacek also deserves a mention here. In terms of stars, Evenepoel and Tarling are my 4-star favorites for this championship. Koen, Roglic and McNulty get 3 stars, Cattaneo and Affini get 2 stars, and Oliveira, Kampenaerts and Vine each get 1 star. As for the podium, I find it hard to argue with the bookies here, and I'm expecting Evenepoel to extend his title ahead of Tarling and Roglic. Enjoy the time trials and see you soon for my road race preview.